Hello and welcome to episode number 66 of the Perth to Paisley Podcast.
It's a big one. We have a lot to talk about, and as a result, we've got a guest in, but we'll get to that in a minute. You can wait. So, yeah, 2 games, a cup draw, multiple contract news. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. So Daniel, I'm joined as ever by Adam. Adam, how you doing?
Oh, I'm great, mate. Can I just say, I'm putting my cards on the table straight away. I didn't watch either Hearts game live. I was at a concert on the Thursday night. Was working on the Sunday. I did listen to the Living game on Sports Sound. Have since got up with the highlights. Can't remember most of it, given that there were 2 terrible games. But given the guest that you've alluded to, I don't think this is going to be quite the serious discussion that this podcast sometimes goes down.
Well,
so I'm good. What about yourself, mate?
I'm all right. I'm doing okay. However, there's an element to me hosting this that is going to be interesting because our guest is someone who has produced several books. He reviews music. He's also a stand-up comedian, but his full-time job seems to be mocking and bullying me on Twitter. So could we all welcome Mr. Richard Cobb to the podcast? Richard, how are you doing?
Good, thanks. I don't know why I thought I'd give myself the kind of theatrical entrance with the switching the camera off, but good. Yeah, I just wanted to establish why I'm on this, just out of interest.
We've run out of guests, and you were available.
I thought it was initially it was the pity for someone about a Twitter post, and then you took pity, so that's when I pounced. So that's good.
Well, it's interesting you allude to that because you said on Twitter that this is only your second appearance on the podcast, and the other one involved David Hasselhoff. Please explain that.
Yeah, it's not online anymore. I've checked, which is convenient. But it was like the Fringe in 2012, and there was some sort of Richard Bacon, like the big BBC tent in I don't know where it is now, but it was in the Bristol Square. So then I went along to that, and they did that annoying thing where they ask if anyone in the audience has got a question, and I just stick my hand up. I did that when I went to see Nick Cave, and I've done it again here, and I put my hand up without actually having a question. So then Richard Bacon came bounding up the stairs with a microphone, and I just live on radio too, and I drunkenly asked him a question about if he was fully invested in the film Piranha 3DD, and what his intentions were behind being in that film. And yeah, I mean, to be fair, he was nice about it. He said it was a boring answer. It's not even worth mentioning on here, but yeah. Good. So I mean, it's gone downhill to be honest.
Yeah. I was going to say from David Hasselhoff to Adam Kennedy and Daniel McIver speaking about Auckland like Talbot. That's one fall from grace from you. But anyway, we hope
things can only get better from here, surely.
But yeah, pleasure to be. Thanks for the pity invite.
No worries at all. But yes, as I said, we have a lot to talk about. Last week, me and Adam had recorded early, so we missed the cup draw that was actually done the day after we normally record. So Adam last week said he wanted one team. Who was that team that you said, Adam?
Ayr United away.
Yeah, it was. And then there was another team that you said, they wouldn't be too bad to have either. Who was that?
Kilmarnock away.
Yes, it was. And then there was a team that I said, no, we don't want them. It's another slip up. It's going to be a bit of a nightmare. And who was that team?
That was who we got. Auckland like Talbot away.
Yes, it was. For the 3rd time in under a decade, Hearts have been drawn in the Scottish Cup to Auckland Talbot. This time, however, it is away from home. Richard, how did you react when you saw the draw?
Well, I forgot about it until 2 minutes before you push record. So it's not I've recovered. When is it? Have you said that already?
January 22nd and 23rd, that weekend, I think.
Right. I mean, it's fine, but as I was discussing, I think their fans are. I don't know what basis this is, but can you swear on this?
Yeah, you can say whatever the fuck you want.
Right, okay, fine. I've not listened to an episode before, so the fans aren't pleasant. So I'm not even going to swear. I don't even know what I asked, but they've got this kind of big guy sort of syndrome where they sort of think they're amazing in the junior league, but they also don't want to be tested at a higher level. Probably, or they just don't win the important games. So they're kind of look at us, and it's big fish in a small pond. I don't know where I'm going with this, but yeah.
Well, see, I panic a bit that you're saying this, and then this gets clipped up when we get beat 1-0 away from home.
Nothing surer.
So that's going to be some laugh for all of us. However, Adam, you're delighted because it's near you. But
lovely little trip for me.
When it happened, I messaged you going, oh, great, another non-league team in the middle of January in the fourth round of the Scottish Cup away from home. It can only go one way.
Well, it could possibly go wrong.
Yeah.
Look, I did say that I wanted an Ayrshire team away for convenience, despite saying that Banks or the Tynecastle would be my preference.
Mm-hmm.
Elsewhere, I thought the draw for the most part was pretty underwhelming, to be honest. I think Kelly Dundee United being the most noteworthy tie just about sums it up. Really rubbish draw in all honesty. But as long as we're in the hat, I won't care one bit.
It's this whole it's this fairy tale stuff. I hate being on the receiving end of that. It was like Gretna, people like, oh, like the wonders of the Scottish Cup and like magic and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's fine if we're not involved. But as soon as we get involved in it, like trouble starts.
Yeah, I fully support that. However, speaking about magic, this is a fucking excellent segue. We all wanted and hoped for a bit of magic as midweek we travelled to Celtic Park looking for our first win in 20 games.
We didn't need magic. We needed a miracle.
That's true. So we travelled midweek, Thursday night, to Celtic Park. And it was not an uneventful game, we'll put it that way. However, first, we will speak about the other results in and around it because we were the Thursday night game. However, there was a whole host of Wednesday night games as St Mirren and Ross County
and the Tuesday.
Oh, yeah, and the Tuesday. I forgot about the Tuesday. Who played in the Tuesday?
Motherwell beat Dundee United 1-0 at Fir Park.
Yes, they did. Then, thank you, on the way, it's not listed on the BBC because that was clearly the 30th of November. So I've just got from the 1st of December here. St Mirren continued their 0-0 draws that they seem to be having the most out of any team against Ross County. Hibs lost 1-0 to Rangers at Easter Road. Dundee continued their kind of upward trajectory across the table as they beat St Johnstone, who looked to be in real trouble, and Aberdeen had a comfortable 2-0 win against Livingston. Richard, the main thing I'll ask you is because it was in all over social media, did you see the penalty that Rangers got to win the game?
I did, yeah, I watched it a couple of times.
What is your thoughts?
I think I think as soon as you put your foot in like that, then you're asking the question. I don't want to sound like a boring sports scene presenter or anything like that because they always like. Have you noticed recently? I'm going to go off tangent. Have you noticed recently they just whether it's McFadden or whatever, they all just sort of do the same line of oh I've seen it given, and it's just rubbish and nobody seems to have an opinion anymore. Probably off the back of the Michael Stewart offending Rangers sort of stuff. So they always do that same sort of thing, but. To sort of quote them on their boringness, it probably was. I mean, you ask the question when you're doing that, and I think when you're playing a team of that full caliber, then it's going to happen. So, yeah, probably a penalty in my eyes, I think.
Adam, obviously, part of the controversy was that Kent goes down quite theatrically. I saw a couple of people put it. However, there's definite contact there, and do you buy into the kind of, I don't know why to call it a conspiracy, but that the individual who was giving away the penalty perhaps has a reputation behind him in the form of Ryan Porteous?
He definitely has a reputation that only Ryan Porteous can answer for, to be honest. Look, I'm a fan of the type of, how shall I say it, the sort of controversy and camaraderie that he brings. But when you're then made to look like a numpty, it's not a good look. If you can act the big man and get away with it, then by all means, great. But Ryan Porteous has just been made to look like a total numpty, given his comments after the Premier Sports Cup semi-final. The whole, do we look happy? That was in response to a question that didn't even warrant that answer. To then come back into the Hibs team, I think he scored an own goal away at McDermott Park.
Yeah, he did.
And then all of a sudden now he gives away the penalty from which Rangers score from. So do your talking on the park, Ryan. And you might actually leave Hibs and become a competent centre-half for the Scottish national team. There you go.
Well,
simple as.
that was more than I was bargaining for there, I'll be honest. But
You're welcome.
Fair play. I rate it. Anyway, we'll move on from that and you fight.
Actually, before we do,
Yeah.
I've got someone on that as well. Like, I feel like he kind of, if you're going to be handing it out like that, you sort of need to have, going back to sort of proving it on the football pitch. I'm like, what has he really done? Cue this getting cut as well when he scores, against us.
Winner in the derby in January.
Yeah,
exactly. But the sort of thing, he's not like, I don't know if his teammates, it must wind them up a little bit, just because it's almost like it's a big about him. It's a bit like Jason Cummins and stuff as well. It's that whole the personalities and like the fans totally buy into it. But I mean, he's quite an average
and the
competent
club buy
footballer,
into
to be
it
honest.
as well, don't they? With the whole "Do we look happy" T-shirt malarkey. What is all that about? You're embarrassing yourselves.
I mean, we did release a Lego boss, so I'm not going to have any comments on that.
That's a fair point.
Well, we, however, had to do our talking on the park as we travelled to Celtic Park, and the first thing, it was
the fixture I look forward to the most every season. Can't wait for it.
A great away
Love
day
it.
for everybody. Right, the biggest talking point from this is that we changed system for the first time, really, this season. From the start of the game, we've been quite fluid when we're in passages of play that we can change wee bits and pieces. However, Robbie elected to go with a back four to start the game for what I think is the first time this season, which when everybody saw Craig Halkett and in a 2, there was some panic on Twitter. However, we played the 4-2-3-1. It was Gordon in goals, Smith and Kingsley as the fullbacks, Suter and Halkett as the 2, Cammy Devlin and the returning Peter Haring into the middle of the park, then Ben Woodburn, Aaron McAneff and Barry Mackay in behind Josh Ginnelly. Richard, how have you felt the 4-3-3 or 3-4-3, has worked away from home? And did you feel the change of shape was a necessary one?
Sorry, that's the usual hourly sirens just gone past my window in southwest London. So I kind of feel like you need to change it, but my concern is that we don't kind of like. I'm like, when do we change it? Like, when we're playing, like, this would be the game to change it in. But I sort of, your alarm bells do start ringing when you see it changing like that, because you're sort of like, well, are they going to gel? Like, we're doing well, but then if you see our how we've been doing away from home, then it's not fantastic. So obviously we are needing to change it up. And I think the thing that happens as well is that teams become wise to it, which has happened on a couple of occasions, probably Motherwell, for example. So yeah, I think it was needed, but it's a dangerous one. They're kind of bringing new formations in for, really.
Definitely. And Adam, obviously, we got the news in the week that your favourite human being on the planet, Benny Beningame, was not going to be available for this game and the game that we'll be speaking about later on. Peter Haring came in, and some people on Twitter were saying that this is a worry because the criticism that has been labelled at Peter Haring is that since his injury, he's really, really slowed down. He was never massively fast to begin with, but his injury has clearly taken a lot of pace out of him. How did you feel when you saw that kind of front six? Because you'd been advocating for Woodburn to keep his place, but you needed him to step up. You wanted Liam Boyson if he was fit, but you were happy with Josh Ginnelly also starting. How do you feel that front six were going to do when you saw the lineup?
To be honest, this is where you kind of gauge your expectations and your wants. I think, to me, when I first saw the team, it seemed as though we were prioritising the Sunday, which I don't blame the gaffer for whatsoever. If we're expected to go to Celtic Park and get beat anyway, that probably is the game to experiment in rather than, the Livy one. For me, I was disappointed to see Liam Boyce drop out, because as much as Josh Ginnelly's pace kind of on the counter, I could see that being a genuine tactic with us kind of soaking up pressure, as again, I'm not a big fan of, but if we can find Ginnelly on the break, then yeah, sure, that can hurt teams. It hurt Celtic even when we were rubbish in the Premier Sports Cup. Josh Ginnelly was one of the better players that day when coming on as a sub. So
was that when we got Gubbed 3-2? Was that one?
That was the one.
Yes,
destroyed 3-2. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that. So yeah, I think it was a no cares selection, to be honest. And one that I didn't really have any arguments with, because, as is always the case with us going to Parkhead, we've not really got anything to lose, to be honest.
I think that's pretty fair. I think when everybody saw it, it was like, the statement that Hearts fans have in a run up to either Ibrox or Celtic Park is at least have a go. And I think that lineup was like, right, okay, we've got 3 fast wingers all.
Can I also
together.
say, I think it's a decent chance it was a decent chance for Aaron McEneff to impose himself.
Mm-hmm.
Big Pete, like you said, Josh Ginnelly, yeah. We're going to obviously talk about his Livingston performance, albeit a short one. I wasn't impressed with Ben Woodburn at Ibrox. Again, at Parkhead, offered next to nothing. But on the whole, it seemed as though we were prioritising that Livy game. And listen, it's paid off for us in the end. Again, not all that impressed with the Parkhead selection, but it is what it is.
So the first 10 minutes happened, and it happened in a way that I think every Hearts fan was almost dreading. We couldn't really get a foot on the ball. We couldn't keep it. Celtic were pressing incredibly high. I think you could tell that Postecoglou had said to Jota, run at him, because Michael Smith is not the fastest anyway. And obviously it reminded me of that, I think it was the League Cup semi-final when Naismith got hurt and Scott Sinclair just ran at Michael Smith for the entirety of the first half. Jota was in a very similar circumstance to that. The first real chance comes from quite out of character. Craig Gordon has it at his feet and plays a very short pass to Cammy Devlin, who is dispossessed very easily. A shot goes off and Gordon spills it, but just before Forrest can kind of just tap home, Gordon almost pushes it against his shin and it hits off the post. Richard, at this point, were you thinking, this is just another traditional Celtic Park performance, it's going to be a long night?
I think the thing, like more recently, I think when you look at the last cup final, for example, it's just like you just don't seem to turn up in the first half, and it's just really frustrating because it's kind of like, you're like, oh, if only we could replicate that over 2 halves, and it doesn't seem to happen. I mean, to be honest, like the way it goes, I'd rather we turned up the second half if I had to choose, but like it's just so frustrating because you're kind of like, oh, what if we had that intensity the whole way through, which to be honest is not going to happen. And I guess that's why we tried to sort of set up and contain them in the first half. But I mean, Celtic seemed very wasteful, and I think like we're, to be honest, quite lucky to be, I won't ruin it. Okay, well, we were lucky to go 1-0 at half time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It seemed as though we were just intent on kind of recreating the Ibrox performance and result, wasn't it really? I mean, I get why we contain at these venues rather than attack from the off. But it does become annoying when, like at Ibrox, it takes us an hour, maybe 65, 70 minutes to play. And then from there on in, we seem to get a real foothold in the game, take our chances when they arrive, and then you're left scratching your head while simultaneously you're really pleased, thinking, imagine if we'd have replicated that last 20 minutes over a 90-minute period, like Richard says.
I think that's fair. The kind of first half an hour continued on that. Suter and Halkett did incredibly well, but Halkett in particular just seemed to be doing his usual of just winning everything in the air whenever it came to him. However, Celtic were smart. They kept it on the ground for the most part and were moving it very quickly. However, we were actually, whilst not doing anything ourselves, and you could tell, especially in the 21st minute, the camera cuts to Cammy Devlin and he just kind of looks to the skies and kind of puffs out his cheeks in a, I'm getting overrun here. And I think everybody knew it. But then 33rd minute comes and, I mean, we're almost a week on from this game and everybody's still talking about it. There was an interesting piece from our former chairman, Leslie Deans, in the media today. The ball is played through. Celtic have it in really nice passage of play. It goes out to the right to Tony Ralston, who fizzes a ball across the face of goal, and Kyogo Furuhashi is there to tap it in. Now, immediately, our entire back line put up their hands and stop and look to the linesman as if to be like, obviously offside. Laurie and Borthwick, who obviously were doing the commentary, that's how I was watching it. I was watching it on Hearts TV. They weren't sure what was going on. They were a bit hesitant. And then the first replay happens. And Adam, you weren't watching it live.
No.
So at the time, when you heard we went 1-0 down, how did you feel? But then seeing how we went 1-0 down, how did that change your opinion on how you felt?
Somewhat, yeah. I was at vistas at the Barrows at the Barras on the Thursday night. So literally about
Sorry
a
to hear
mile and a
that,
half away from Park. Thanks for that. And yeah, it was obviously getting the updates on my mobile, me being the sad individual that I am.
Hey, you've got a podcast to run.
Well, that's it. And I thought, come half an hour, I was like, oh, they're actually seem to be riding the wave. I was under no illusions that Celtic were battering us, as they always do. And then obviously see that we go 1-0 down. Okay, no biggie, plenty time. Yes, that's disappointing. Then I receive a barrel load of messages from fellow Hearts fans. Now, this is where you sort of try and gauge whether your mates are chatting absolute nonsense or not, because I don't know whether there's folk texting me saying, how can they not see that that's offside out of sheer hatred or not? So I still haven't seen it. And then obviously later on, all the videos, still images, all this nonsense emerges. And you're right, we're nearly a week on from it. I'm still not happy. I'm still very angry, but it's not very angry at solely the decision. I'm more angry at the positives from their performance, but not taking our chances on this occasion, alongside the only difference being an offside goal. When you combine all these factors, that's what builds the rage. It's not that we've just lost to a dodgy decision, because we didn't take our chances. And I think sometimes it just comes down to something as simple as that. Sorry,
Richard, I would say when you look at the still, which can sometimes be disingenuous, you see that a lot in the VAR discussion, that still images can sometimes show a picture that isn't necessarily there. However, in an offside, it's very much cut and dry. It's not, as Robbie said after it, you can't be a bit onside or a bit offside. You're either onside or offside. He is about a yard offside.
Is that a question? Sorry, I was waiting for the.
No,
I was waiting for the hook of the question. I was like,
we're having a sponsored silence mid-pod, mate.
No, I liked your face, because that in that moment kind of summed up how I felt at the time. What I was going to let you do there was just kind of make a noise of anger before the question came, which was going to be, do you agree with some of the criticism, namely that I heard from my dad, that Craig Halkett could be at fault for the goal, as it's technically his man?
Sorry, your dad said that.
So I'll give him one slight adage. He was very drunk, right? So he phoned me and he went, listen, it's offside, but Halkett doesn't get rid of the danger. And I went, because he's holding a line. He's making sure he's offside. But he's like, yeah, but it didn't get given as offside, so therefore Halkett didn't clear the ball.
Can I just say, this is what really annoys me. Celtic fans were quick to pull up the Abada goal at Tynecastle, right? They forget the fact that they concede the winner from a set piece and the defence don't do their jobs. The difference is Hearts defence do their jobs, but are still punished with it or by it because of the incompetent officials. So
Morella's at Tynecastle again, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. That's the one that I've seen the most out of everything, because that was another situation where we held a line, and in the Morelos situation there was about 5 folk all offside at once. But were you watching it live? Did you see it as it happened?
Yeah, so watching it live, and even his celebration seemed quite muted. So I'd immediately thought, without having seen the second angle, that he's turned around and seen the flag. So I was kind of pretty calm about it for about 3 seconds, and then I got less calm, and then we've arrived to the day, nearly, like you said, nearly a week later, and I was nearly fine, and then we've started this discussion, and I'm pretty furious again, to be honest. But
I think it came with the controversy that, listen, offside goals and decisions happen a lot. As Adam just mentioned, in our first game, now both games in the week, there has been an offside controversy. However, with this one, the linesman doesn't even have an excuse of he's got people in front of him. The only person really that's in front of him is Tony Ralston. But even then, when you see the image, Ralston's still a wee bit behind him. He is looking bang up the line. And then, Richard, that's actually a really good point. Kyogo's celebration, that I think about it, is very muted. He kind of just goes, yay. Like, that's it. He must be thinking that's off.
or at least like it's getting looked at. Maybe that's the question, rather than it's not the all-out euphoria or theatrics that would match his diving, I guess.
Well, actually, that's a great segue, because that actually happened 5 minutes later, where I don't think anybody in Scottish football or who consumes it or speaks about it has ever said that Kyogo's a bad player. I think most people actually say he's a fantastic player. And the frustration comes from the fact that he seems to, well, just diving is the only word. Like, Richard, could you try and describe what happened between him and John Souttar in a small, because I don't even know what happened really.
Well, I've written down, so basically for the planning for this, I've written down like 3, but then you told me about who we got in the cup. So I've written 4 bullet points. And one of them was, who are those people that you work for, Adam, again? That weird. Yeah. So like they put him in the team of the day or team of the week or whatever it's called.
Team of the match day.
Yeah. And I sort of slated it. I wrote back and then had an opinion about that. But then I noticed once I'd done it, I'd realised that Kyogo was copied into it as well. And I've always got a thing about if you've got something to say about a footballer, don't tweet them, because it's petty and it doesn't help their mental health and stuff. And immediately when I realised he was copied in, I felt like, in Bruges, when like Ralph Fiennes shoots a midget or what he thinks is a little boy, and then it's a midget. I felt like that. I was like, I've completely turned into the guy that I hate the most. And yeah. So that's one bullet point down. What was the question?
What happened with him and John Souttar? Because I don't even really know.
Well, he was sort of like, he was like, I guess, twisting his excess fat, if you want to call it that. Like seeing when they're like weight testing you, he probably gets this done every day at Parkhead. Like when they sort of check, like, yeah, he grabbed him a little bit, but in the same way, it's like he could have given him like a Chinese bun. It's the same. Like it's not going to hurt you, but then he was kicking off about it and then diving over. I don't want to say too much because I'm probably going to get shot by the Celtic fans.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'll quickly segue away from you to Adam.
There'll be a couple that'll be watching this just for my reaction. I can tell.
Well, this is the thing. This is why you're hated by most clubs at this point. So
just living rent free in people's skulls, mate.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it.
I feel like
can I still say Chinese buns? Is that fine? Like I've just realised that could be taken out of context. That's still what it's called, right?
I don't
you guys
know.
are a bit younger than me. So.
It's sure.
No, I've known it to be a Chinese bun, mate. Yeah.
Good. Okay.
I think it's still acceptable in this day and age.
Don't worry. Imagine that. This is the podcast that gets you cancelled. This is the piece of media.
Cancelled on my second podcast, yeah.
Yes, exactly. What a fleeting career that is. Anyway, we do get to halftime and it is 1-0. There was met with a lot of, we've not played well at all here, and if it doesn't improve in the second half, we're kind of going to get overrun potentially. But then the second half comes, and one of the first things, I want to get the exact minute, because Adam, you mentioned them earlier. When we saw the lineup of that front three of Josh Ginnelly, Barry Mackay and Ben Woodburn, I think some people were happy with it, but others were worried it was going to be similar to the Motherwell performance, where if those three can't connect, if those three don't have any synergy between each other, if those three can't get their foot in the ball, we have nothing. We have no form of outball. And in the 55th minute, we made our first sub. Liam Boyce replaces Ben Woodburn. Now, in the evening news, I can't remember who's doing the ratings. I think it might have been Craig Fowler gave Ben Woodburn a 4. And the review of that from people was, that's 4 points too high for Ben Woodburn. Adam, you said that you weren't impressed with him.
No.
Explain.
What is there to explain? This is a young man that is a full Welsh international that has arrived with a decent enough reputation.
You look quite like him, actually. I've just noticed it. Just looking now. Like, is it the hair? I don't know. Is it like, anyway, sorry, carry on. That's probably annoyed you more.
Richard, I feel like there's some personal vendetta between me and you tonight. It's emerging. I thought you had it in for McIver. Now I'm starting to think you got it in for the pair of us.
The silence that is, yes, it is. That is the case. Brilliant. Continue your hatred of Ben Woodburn.
No, it's not hate. It's not so much hatred. It's more annoyance that we've sort of been misled, missold, I don't know what the right term is. A growing reputation, albeit, of course, still in the early stages of his young career. But given his reputation, the supposed promise he has, the potential, we've not seen that bar the Dundee United game. There's been times where I've thought all he's needed was a goal. And then that United game, I thought, brilliant. He's bagged a brace now. The second was an absolute stunner. Surely now he's going to kick on. But it seems as though if it isn't at Tynecastle, then he's not remotely interested, because it's the away days that have been highlighted the most. I talked about Ibrox. You talked about Motherwell, Parkhead, Livingston at the weekend. Like, is there some kind of Tynecastle syndrome? Is like, what's going on here? How can you not perform away from home? Like, you've got a contract with Liverpool, one of the biggest clubs in world football. They've sent you up to Hearts for a reason. Get some game time, hopefully improve, develop as a player. And how can that be the case when you're only going to perform in, so far, one game? I was going to say half the games at home, but all we've seen is one performance. And his greed's annoyed me. Like, shooting at the edge of the box when sometimes a pass or there's a better option available. I've been very underwhelmed by the signing of Ben Woodburn so far, and he's got a long way to try and get back to, I was going to say good terms with the Hearts fans. That's harsh, but show us something.
Richard, we have obviously had all season to speak about Ben Woodburn. However, what's your thoughts? Were you excited by the signing, and what have you made of him so far in the 14 or so games he's played?
I was, but I think I feel his attitude, well, I mean, I don't want to kind of, he's a young lad. I mean, there could be a number of things why you're not performing, but I think, like, on the face of it, it's, if you compare Bellingham has come from Everton and he's applied himself straight away and, gone the extra mile, put the work in, maybe flagged off a bit more recently, obviously, before the injury, but, he seemed to get it straight away. I think Woodburn almost, like, it felt like he'd been sent here on like an exchange trip or something, or he's sort of like, I don't really want to be here, and that's, or at least that's the way that it's, he's kind of been playing, and I just sort of, it's just frustrating because it's one of them, like, when you arrive with the kind of caliber that they have done, or the thoughts behind it is that they'd completely rip it up, and like you kind of want to give these people the benefit of the doubt, but then again, the last time we gave someone that was a loan from a pretty high profile club, like Pereira, for example, it's like you kept playing him and looking what was happening, and I'm not comparing, I'm not saying he's as bad, but he's hardly like lit the place up, is he?
No, that's
I think
fair.
This is where social media is misleading as well, because, and all these articles that come out about this coffee club, PlayStation, like mingling with teammates, all that's great, but you've got to do it on the park as well as off it.
We're not getting into discussions about what players do in their spare time.
This is about enjoyment. Like, he obviously gets on well with the squad.
Mm-hmm.
He appears to be enjoying his time at Hearts off the park. So show that you're enjoying it on the park as well by contributing and performing better, please. That's all it is. He can do whatever he likes during the week. I don't care. I'm not sat here on my Tuesday night wondering what Ben Woodburn's up to. I'm wondering if I'm going to see him perform in a Hearts shirt. That's the bottom line.
This is weird because I feel there's been a few bits already that could easily be clipped. That could be like the trailer for this episode, and you've had two absolutely smashed it twice in the last 5 minutes. So that's,
we need to step up.
That gets my vote.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely getting clipped. However, the guy that Adam was just writing about did come off, and Liam Boyce came on, and from that moment we kind of changed. Really, we had an out ball. We had someone hold it up. We had a huge opportunity only 4 minutes later where a ball was swung in by Barry Mackay, who we will get to in a second because there was controversy with him as well. A ball was swung in and Stephen Kingsley has this space of Parkhead to make a run, which he does perfectly. And Richard, would you say he kind of just makes his run too early and he almost headers it when he's in front of it? Do you think that's why he misses?
I mean, I've not analysed it too much, but I just instantly got reminded of it's like I just instantly remembered about his penalty miss against Celtic in the cup. It was like, he can bang him in from 30 yards out, but as soon as he's in the box, he just his feet turn to cement or his head. I don't even think I can speak about this. I'm just getting too emotional. But
Another biscuits in the box, isn't he?
Yeah, it's a massive miss, and one of those where if it's a Tynecastle, you can go, it's all right, we're going to have other chances against other teams, but at Parkhead, you're not going to get many chances that are that open. It cut to Postecoglou, who was losing his mind that Kingsley had that much space. It
just seems like it's totally mistimed, though, doesn't it? Like the ball and run simultaneously. We get that right, he scores because he's free.
Definitely.
And it's just that's the rub of the green sometimes as well. We could talk about decisions. These are the fine margins where these games are defined, and ultimately it's a big chance for us. We haven't taken it, and we're hoping for one or possibly two more if we're lucky.
Yeah, definitely. And then I'm going to put these two things together because they're both Bobby Madden based. So 2 minutes later, we get another corner, and Barry Mackay is just getting pelted with, I think, coins, but then a bottle hits him in the back, and he turns to Bobby Madden as if to be like, what am I supposed to do here? And Bobby Madden whistles and almost just is like, hurry up and take the corner. And you can see Barry Mackay's just standing there like, what am I meant to do? And then 75 seconds later, another thing that has almost annoyed people more than the offside goal is that Jota has the ball in his kind of defensive third. He takes a couple of steps forward. Haring does really well to close him down, and his hamstring goes completely just run the moment thing. Haring goes to take the ball forward and play in an on-running Liam Boyce, and Bobby Madden blows and doesn't indicate anything. He doesn't point for a foul. He just puts his hands up and does that, and it is then apparent that he is stopped for the injury to Jota. Now, Adam, we've spoken about Craig Halkett a few weeks ago when he had his concussion kind of shout, and then when he had his back spasm. When he had his concussion worry, and when Gordon got kicked in the head, obviously the referee in both those occasions stopped the game. However, when Halkett had his back spasm, yes, exactly. But when Halkett had his spasm, it was no, just keep playing on until we keep going, because it's not a head knock.
Which again, exactly, it's not a life-threatening injury. I fully go along with that.
How did you react?
Absolutely fizzing. What is the point? Why do we need to stop play there? We're away. We're literally away.
4-on-2, I think.
And albeit, I know that we are, for the most part, shit on the counter-attack, but that doesn't excuse the fact that we're away.
In fairness, there was only like 10 yards until the goal. We didn't have to travel far.
Surely not even we can cock that up. How can you cock that decision up? Yeah. What are you stopping it for? If it's a head knock, by all means. Or if it's a life-threatening injury, by all means. It's neither of those. He's out for a couple of weeks. But am I missing something here?
Well, apparently you are, because Bobby Madden actually did this earlier in the season. I can't remember who it was for, but he also pulled up a muscle injury.
Hibs, I think.
Yes, yes, I think it was. I think it was Kyle McGuinness, actually, yeah, who we actually just saw today is still hurt from that. So maybe Bobby Madden was right. Maybe,
you know what? No, hold on a second. You talked about
You can't just make the rules up, though, can you? Like, you can't just be like...
You talked about footballers and what they get up to in their spare time. Maybe Bobby Madden's another who, like Andy Halliday, according to some Hearts fans, should quit open goal and all these other appearances and stick to your full-time job and being a referee part-time. Simple.
Richard, then not only...
Also, sorry, like, I'm like, oh yeah, you can, if you run in a straight line and you pull up, then it's like, I'll blow the whistle. But if someone like chucks a Butler Lucas at you, it's like, hurry up and take the fucking corner. Like,
yeah, it makes absolutely no sense at all. And then, what did you make, Richard, of him then giving a drop ball to Celtic and letting them play forward?
What I took from it was I put a little a tweet thing out about, it was like a clip from BBC about Nielsen saying, but that's Scottish football, you're in Glasgow. And it was just, I was quite annoyed when I sent it, but I was even more annoyed that it kept getting like retweeted and then liked and stuff, because I kept remembering about it every time my phone went off. So it was just like, and then like I do this thing, like I mostly mute notifications from people that I don't follow or whatever, but like I just have this thing where I'm like, oh, if it's done quite well, I'll be like, oh, I'll see the quote tweets, and then it's just Celtic fans being like, oh, blah blah blah, and I'm just like, no,
that's the best when that happens.
I get so annoyed.
You've caught a few and reeled a few in.
But no, like fuming. I think just that annoyed me more than the goal, because I think you can almost excuse it just from the sense of like, you can think like with the the offside, you're like, you don't know what he's going through, blah blah blah. He might have caught something in the,
and that happens a lot.
Something else
Offside
happens, yeah.
circumstances can happen.
But then I just feel like I think I'd refer to it as feeling like the mask had slipped. Just a little bit like, oh, what's happened here? Like, has it been has he clipped him? What's happened? Or Celtic players injured, the Hearts players about to get the ball. I'll stop it and then figure out what's happened later on. That to me, but maybe it was the emotions of the night and just getting wound up and feeling that every time we go through to Glasgow, something like this is going to happen. But I mean, definitely didn't cover himself in glory, and I'm still furious about it.
I'd actually forgotten about the drop ball till you brought that up, McIver. So thanks for that.
Sorry,
I really appreciate that. Now it's actually got me more angry than the goal because that was just ludicrous.
It proper is just making up rules, as you said, Richard. It is literally just going, nah, I'm just doing this. That's what I want to do.
So I was even just like, I hadn't even taken on board your question there. I just saw red mist, like forgetting
about
the drop ball. But like, yeah, like I don't understand. But then I think people are saying like should Hearts have protested more about it? I'm like, no, like you've seen that if like Nielsen complains about stuff like this, he'll just get slapped with a ban, and it's like Hearts would have just got bookings or whatever. So I'm like, there's absolutely no point arguing with the referee when you're through in Glasgow. It's just.
It's like Leslie Deans is wanting this replay. There's a part of me that's like, yeah, I can appreciate that. But there's also a part of me that thinks, well, firstly, him saying that is just for the patter. And secondly, I guarantee Celtic would absolutely demolish us in a potential replay. So let's just suck it up, accept it, and move on.
We get the replay and they could see 2 more goals and that costs us a European spot.
Yes, exactly. That would be the most
heart of Midlothian thing ever.
Exactly. To be honest, from then, not much else happened. Celtic had to make 3 enforced subs. All of their subs had to be forced. And it meant that, as Adam said, it has meant that Jota's out for a bit of time, but obviously that means absolutely nothing to us.
No, other than the Premier Sports Cup final. Be nice if he was fit for that, but all of Celtic's other fixtures couldn't give a monkeys. He's not injured for long enough, Rat.
Yeah. Well, we'll move on from that level of intensity because it was only 3 days later that we played in a game that a lot of Hearts fans, and I think Adam, as you said, just as we started the Celtic discussion, this was the game that we looked at going, we're probably going to get beat here at Celtic Park. We need to pick up points away at Livingston. Now, just before we get into that, there was obviously the rest of the weekend's fixtures. And to be honest, from a Hearts persuasion, they couldn't really have gone much better as Rangers demolished Dundee, which didn't affect us either way. Then Hibs drew 1-0 with Motherwell. Aberdeen battered St Mirren, quite surprisingly. And then Dundee United, our kind of biggest rivals for the last few weeks and currently, were absolutely demolished by Celtic 3-0. Richard, I want to know your opinion in terms of who we should be looking out for most. Now, Adam has ever been the optimist, ever been the confident in that he's been a bit annoyed whenever Rangers and Celtic have dropped points and we've not capitalised because he's felt, listen, why not? Why should we not push for competing for the top 2 places? However, other people are going, listen, we're not competing for that. We're competing for 3rd and 4th, primarily 3rd. Where do you stand? I can also
accept, by the way.
I'm not
just adamant that we should walk away if we don't finish in the top 2 or whatever.
Yes.
I'm chill, but I'm also thinking, well, why not?
Richard, where do you fall in that discussion?
In terms of who we got in the upcoming fixtures, or
who do you worry about most? So, for example, for me, I look towards Dundee United, Hibs and Motherwell's fixtures in recent weeks because I think they're who we're competing with. I don't really view us as competing with the top 2, despite how much I'd love to, and we're not that far away, all things considered.
I don't think Aberdeen are that far away from us.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So, I think, well, firstly, I'm impressed that you've not mentioned my guy Stephen falling over his own feet in the last game.
I forgot about that.
You let him off with that. So so that's good.
Idiot.
But then we'll move on. And I think if you look at, I think the weekend that's just passed, I think that's an indication of being realistic about it. It seemed like Motherwell, Hibs dropping points. I don't know why I've included Hibs in that because they're miles behind. But them dropping points, Dundee United getting beat, and I think from that point of view, at least the the ones close to us, then it's like you want to open up a bit of a gap. I mean, particularly when we've got Rangers coming up as well. It's being realistic about it. It's one of them you kind of look for. I think probably the best way to look at it was like, Hibs playing Rangers. You're sort of thinking like, I don't know the best situation here, because it kind of, if Hibs win, then it means we gain ground on Rangers, but then again, other way around, and they gain ground on us. So I think it was about being realistic, and I think, to be honest, I was kind of more veering towards Rangers winning that, just because I was thinking, we want to kind of get a bit of night and day between us and the teams below us, and then we can kind of look above. So I think being realistic, third place is probably the aim at the moment.
100%. And what that meant was that Hearts knew a win would take them 5 points clear in third. However, we had to travel to not a happy hunting ground for us, particularly.
A great stadium.
Yeah, it's a great place. The only plastic pitch in the league, actually. We travelled.
Fans.
Yeah, we travelled to the Tony Macaroni to meet Adam's nemesis, Livingston Football Club.
That could be applicable to any Scottish club. You were talking about it there. Again, delighted to see Hibs and Motherwell share the spoils. That was nice. Disappointed to see Aberdeen win, but pleased to see St Mirren get pumped. Pleased to see Dundee win. Okay, Rangers win. Don't really care. And yeah, United Celtic. That was nice, but again, not really nice. So we've profited from the weekend, and that's then when you realise Hearts are the final fixture here. Everything's gone swimmingly. Please, for once, just pull through, and thankfully they did. It was nice.
Well, the team had a couple of changes as we went back to the 3-4-3 that I think people were more upset about, because as Richard, you alluded to earlier, particularly the Motherwell game, Aberdeen before that, we seem to have been a bit found out with this 3-4-3 away from home. So it was Gordon, Suter, Halkett Kingsley, a returning Alex Cochrane back at left wing back, Smith at right wing back, Devlin and McAneff in the middle, Mackay, Woodburn, and then the returning Liam Boyce started as that front three. How did you feel, Adam, about the changes made? Were you in favour of the return to the 3-4-3? What were you thinking?
Again, it seemed as though it was kind of back to the strongest 11 for the most part, or from players that were available. Alex Cochrane coming back into the team's nice. Obviously, disappointed to see that Benny didn't make it, but again, given everybody was ranting and raving about Big Pete, was happy to see him continue alongside Devlin.
No, he didn't.
Did he not?
No, it was McAneff.
Was it?
Herring was dropped. That was the controversy that I was going to ask Richard about.
Sorry. That was the change. You're right. Sorry. Yeah. This is what happens when you work the Sunday and you're just retweeting, but you don't know what you're retweeting off the account. Yeah, then in that case, that totally just let's just move on.
Right, Richard.
I wasn't happy to see Ben Woodburn continue to start, but I didn't remember the rest of the team, so who cares? This point's irrelevant. Just move on.
Richard, I'll go to you about Herring, because that seemed to be the main person people were speaking about on Twitter, because he played very well against Celtic. It was his first game in a long, long time, and being chucked back into the team and being told, run about that massive pitch when you're Peter Herring. It's a tough job, but he did very well, and I think a lot of people were hoping that him and Devlin would continue to start. How did you feel about his omission from the starting lineup?
Can I just ask, before you answer, Richard, do you think it's down to the plastic park as well as to why he wasn't selected? Or is that nonsense?
I think that was like going to be 100% of my answer, actually, mate, to be honest.
Sorry, mate. I'm a bear here. You pair just continue. I'll see you later. I'm off.
I think it was down to the plastic pitch, Daniel, to be honest.
It's very interesting.
It was I think that, and I think maybe the way that within 3 days as well, like it's, he's probably run himself to the ground, and it's kind of, you kind of want to nurse him back to full health again a little bit. And I think everyone knows he's not quite the 3 games in a week player that he maybe had been back at the start. And I think it's looking at league table as well, Livingston second bottom, struggling a bit. I think until we knew how much of a mare that Woodburn was going to be having, then it was kind of safe to have him on the bench.
That's fair. That's very fair. However, it did not start the way we all hoped, but maybe started the way we all feared, as it kind of continued the trend of our recent away from home performances where, as Richard said right at the start, we just didn't get going in the first half. We looked very, very bad. Part of that potentially is because within 12 minutes, Michael Smith had a back spasm and it required Taylor Moore to come on. I don't know how crucial Smith was to the game plan. However, having to immediately change personnel will affect it. However, I kind of want to speak about the first 20 minutes before we get to the main point of the game. We just never looked up for it. We were, again, really lax in the ball. I don't know how much of that is to do with the surface and the fact that it moves in a slightly different way, but we were again being overrun in midfield because McInnes played quite a bit higher. He almost played in behind boys. So Devlin had 3 in the middle of the park because they were playing a 4-3-2-1. It meant that Devlin had to do a lot of running himself. And as good as Devlin is, as good as a ball winner he is, he can't beat 3 players all at once. Adam, obviously, as you said, you weren't watching it live. You were working. But what do you make of the trend that, again, it almost doesn't seem to matter the level of opposition? We could be going away to Celtic Park, who are second in the league. We can be going away to Livingston, who are second bottom of the league. And we just almost put in the same quality of performance.
I don't know whether it's kind of just a continuing theme. You know, you can get into habits. I think Hearts had lost their last 3 away league games prior to Livy. Mm-hmm. And the annoyance for me is, and this was obviously made aware to me after the game, is that they've got the worst home record in the league. Their only victory has been against Celtic. Everybody else seems to have picked points in West Lothian. So when you actually, like, this league is mental, and I think it's just a mentality thing that we, for whatever reason, aren't or don't seem to fancy our chances when heading to these grounds. But we've got no excuse not to fancy our chances because we've made a decent start to the season. We're up against, like I say, the side with the worst home record in the entire division. Yes, they might have beaten Celtic there, but so what? We blew them away at Tynecastle, so we should have that same belief that we can blow them away at the Tony Macaroni. And look, conditions weren't great. We can blame the pitch all we want. Robbie loves blaming the pitch, so he'll have no doubt had something to say about that. But in terms of the performance, listening to it, we were getting battered. So to come away and win ugly, we'd have taken that before the game. So no matter how pish the performance was in the grand scheme of things, 3 points were delivered, and that's what makes me happy. Could not care.
Richard, how much do you think it is down to that mentality thing in terms of Hearts players just for whatever reason cannot seem to do it? Or how do you think it's more the fact that you said about the Motherwell game where it seems the 3-4-3 doesn't really work as well away from home as it does at Tynecastle?
I think, well, I mean, a couple of things really. I was kind of thinking, like, adding to my bullet points on the post-it, but I'm not really buying into the whole, you know, like the amount of fans we're taking to these games, like whether it be Livingston, 3,700, 3,500 in Motherwell. And like, I'm struggling to kind of see like the fans play such an important part, but but the players don't seem to be playing as if like they seem to be sort of oblivious to it. And maybe that's unfair given how the second half unfolded, but I just sort of think, I'm like, does it make a big difference? Like, or are these players like kind of going in almost, you know, not up for it anyway? And that was a little bit of a concern. I think particularly seeing how it kind of started against Livingston, and I think as well, it just maybe the way that like Livingston for the past couple of seasons, obviously before we were demoted, were a team that could maybe sort of be punching above the kind of like middle of the table sort of thing. So they kind of be trying to contain, maybe going for a point. But I think because they're so low down that they had to kind of go for it in this game. And, you know, rather than contain us, they had to just run at us. And I think that proved a sort of a different type of struggle this game, because I think we'd maybe expect them to kind of shut up shop and try and keep it tight, maybe hit us on the break. But it was very much them trying to sort of control the game, or at least it felt that way. Maybe because of our own issues. So I've always even the question. I keep forgetting the question.
No, you actually answered it fantastically and has allowed me to segue. So good. That was the perfect point, because one man who kept us in it, and looked like he was expecting the Livy onslaught that followed was Craig Gordon. So Ben Woodburn, twice in quick succession, loses the ball just under no proper pressure, really. The first time, he just goes to back pass it and it goes to absolutely nobody. Gordon makes a decent save to keep it 0-0. And then the clip that has been put round Twitter, it's been shared everywhere. Woodburn gets the ball played to him and he loses it again, just kind of by being brushed off the ball. And it is played through to, what is James Forrest's little brother's name? Alan Forrest. It's played through to little Alan Forrest, who is completely one-on-one, should score, but Gordon makes himself absolutely massive.
Was not Andrew Shinnie that had the first chance?
Was it? I thought it was little Alan Forrest.
I
Well,
don't know.
it's
Either way,
one of them.
It's hundreds of them. But
Yeah, there's loads of them.
Just fast forward to the Jason Holt strike.
No, I'm getting... the whole move makes it. So he makes himself massive in a 1-1. It then ends up at Sibbald, who hits quite a pretty decent shot and it just goes off the post. It still manages to stay in. Taylor Moore then falls on his arse in the middle of the box and it is allowed to be played out to Holt, who's about 23, 24 yards away and hits the perfect shot. He puts whip on it, he bends his foot around it, and in the slow motion from friend of the podcast, Jordan's footage, you can see he actually starts wheeling off to start celebrating. Gordon, who doesn't see it until the ball is almost at him, manages to run across, just get a tip, and pushes it onto the post, which it then ends up at somebody else's feet, who goes really close to him, and he pushes it out for a corner, and then celebrates as if he's just scored the winning penalty for Scotland to win the World Cup. Adam, how good is he?
You know my thoughts on him, mate. He's one of the best in Britain. I'm running out of superlatives. You'd be as well asking Richard, given he's not on this pod every week to give us his
Richard,
thoughts.
how good is he?
Not on this podcast every week until now,
Yes.
just to point out. But I think, what else can you say about him, really? But I think I like particularly that he seemed to sort of capture the essence of my save at football earlier that morning, but I couldn't see a replay of, but I sort of did a similar technique. I think I pushed it past the post actually, so it was nice to kind of watch it back in slow motion. It was everything my save was.
So yours was actually better because you pushed it past the post, not onto the post, and it just went out. So yours was better, basically.
He's obviously inspired you, or vice versa.
I'd argue that the goals were maybe about a third of the size, so he's maybe. But yeah, no, I think it's. That's been 3 sirens. Anyway, I think I don't know. I think the thing as well though is it's like people seem to kind of talk about how good he is as if it's like a kind of like obviously we are lucky to have him, but I'm like, we've had some amount of shite the last few years. I mean, we definitely deserve to have a good goalkeeper for a change. That's
a point I wanted to bring up because Amoruso Let It Run, I think, said it on Twitter today.
Oh, no, you're going to get into here.
Because I know you disagree with this, Adam, so I want to get both your thoughts.
No, I get where you come from.
Right.
It's a valid point.
I will make this point. I'll make the point first. Hold on.
Go on.
Right.
Sorry, wait 2 seconds. As Amoruso Lets It Run, has he not changed his name on Twitter?
Oh, yeah, he is now just
known as
Scott
McIntosh, isn't he?
He is just Scott. That's a very fair point. He raises the point that a lot of times when this happens, when Craig Gordon seemingly every single week makes a regular wonder save, a lot of Hearts fans will say, we're so lucky to have him. Where would we be without him? Almost in a way of suggesting that we're actually playing rubbish, but we've got Craig Gordon, so it's fine. Now, Scott made the point where, and I don't want to get all Roy Keane, but that is his job. That's why we signed him. And as Richard said, fuck me. In the last few seasons, we've had a lot of shit who have not done their job. And I just never really understand that argument in terms of people will never say it in a positive way. Like, no one really says it, meaning it in a positive way. Where would Liverpool be without Salah? Because it's a given that they have him. And it's not like we're suddenly going to go, well, we've only got Craig Gordon until next week, and then he has to leave. He's forced to leave. He doesn't have a choice, and we're going to have to put Ross Stewart back in goals. Now, obviously, if Gordon gets hurt, then we have to put Ross Stewart back in goals. But He's not. He's fit. Richard, you look like you were going to say something there. What were you going to say?
Just like say if you get a PS5 and you're like, how shit would this game be on PS4? You know, it's sort of like that. Yeah. You're like, what? It doesn't make sense. It's like it's the same with people that are like, oh, who's the best keeper in Scotland? Is it McGregor? Is it Gordon or Hart or whatever? And it's like the Rangers fans are like, oh, it's got to be McGregor, blah, blah, blah. And it's like there's literally no way of measuring this. So and also it's Gordon. So fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. Adam, you, however, have said this in the past that where would we be without Craig Gordon? And you've said
we were
it.
struggling in the Vida League, can I just say?
I think you said it this season as well. I'm not letting you get away with that. I'm pretty sure you've said it.
Well, put it this way. He was a key factor as to why we got promoted, isn't he, really?
Yeah. But that's it. But that's why he's here. That's not a bad thing. That's a positive thing.
No, I never once said it was a bad thing.
I
think we are fortunate to have him. That goes without saying. And let's be frank, if he wasn't a Hearts fan, he'd be nowhere near us. But he's been the goalkeeper that we've needed since, what, John McLaughlin left?
Since he left in 2007. That's insulted to other good keepers.
I was going to say, but in terms of like the last decent one, John McLaughlin's the one.
John McLaughlin's the last.
Me.
Yeah.
He's
probably the last.
That was what, 2018? Is
that when he left?
2017, 2018 to Sunderland? Is that right?
I can't even remember. Richard, can you remember?
Well, I tell everyone I'm a Sunderland fan on social media, but I don't know anything about them. So no,
that's exactly why you're on here, Richard.
No idea. I think I saw him in Indigo Yard once, but I think it was just a tall guy that looked like him. And I don't know what year that was, so that's not helpful at all, is it?
We'll go with 2018 and just see. However, the next big thing that immediately followed Gordon's incredible triple save was something that you often don't see. I'm trying to keep this back on the rails. I'm trying to just keep going to the segues.
Oh, sorry.
Basically, Ben Woodburn, I don't know what was going through his head when he saw his number come up, but 29 minutes in.
And here's where who I thought started came on.
Yes, Robbie Nielsen.
Sorry about that.
Makes a change that managers often don't do that early in a game. The only one I can think of in recent history was where Craig Levein took off David Vanacek in a similar amount of time. Richard, you look like you were like going to spring at me there.
2018.
2018.
Yeah.
Cool. There we go.
Sorry, just back like on you go.
You remember that really well, Richard, right? Yeah.
Best year of my life.
That was said with the confidence of a man who's just off Google. But Ben Woodburn gets brought off. He doesn't even get a passing look from Robbie Nielsen as he goes off the bench as well, as Peter Haring came on. Richard, did you expect that bold a move? No, I'm not coming to you next. We've heard enough with you and Woodburn. I want to go to Richard. Did you expect a move that bold from Nielsen to take? Because he wasn't hurt. It was literally saying, you've been so shit and I need to change something here or it's going to get worse.
I was going to praise the gaffer. Surely that's...
Shut up. I'll come to you in a minute.
It was very... very unlike him, I'd say. I think like you're used to the sort of the general like, I'll stick with it. I'll give him a ball in at half time, wait for 60 minutes, and then put a holiday on or something stupid. But like, I think it was like, but it was one of them. Like, you could see the way. Like, I think everyone could see where it was going, and like you could probably, like, I don't know, you were there, weren't you?
No, I watched it live though.
All right, okay. I mean, I would just imagine it was a pretty brutal atmosphere as well. So I think there's probably a number of things that you could kind of think, right, this isn't going well. Like the fans are kind of on our back, which might as well be the home fans because we've got about 7 fans. Yeah. So I think you sort of had to.
They'll be watching this, mate. Just
all 7.
All 7.
Sharing the same Wi-Fi.
Am and View Pod are currently preparing their tweet as we speak.
I think, right, wait, hold on. I was about to segue, actually, but I was going to say, you, Adam, are about to praise Robbie Nielsen.
Yeah.
This is a first.
Big balls. Fair play, gaffer.
Is that it?
What do you want me to say? He was rank. He's been ranking countless away games. Robbie's given him numerous chances to perform. I'm a big fan. Quite right. If he's not doing the business, see you later. So well done. Well done, gaffer. I never thought that I would usher these words for Well, when was the last time I gave the gaffer some credit? Jesus.
It's been long overdue because I think you've done it this season, and we're third.
I think I have. Anyway, well done, Robbie. Thanks,
Richard. Actually, this is a good time.
Sunday afternoon, enjoyable.
Richard, I was going to ask you this towards the end, actually, but I'm going to ask you now because it's going to come up naturally.
Oh, we're not towards the end.
Yeah, but what is your take on Robbie Neilson as Hearts manager? I think I know what it is. I think you're more in line with me. But Adam, the fact that I'm so shocked at him uttering a single line of praise for Robbie Neilson will kind of suggest his thoughts towards the gaffer. But what is your thoughts on Robbie Neilson as Hearts manager?
I've got a kind of I have a similar feeling towards Robbie Neilson that you have towards that snake Stephen Pressley, I would imagine. And that, like, you know, I think, like, I can kind of see, I can see why people are annoyed at him, but I just don't understand it really. I think, like, I sort of see, like, yeah, or you can blame Hibs winning a cup 5 years ago and I'm still in it, but I'm like, it's just not a decent argument. It was like,
can I just say, I don't do that, despite my discontent has been second spell around. So far, if we finish third, then that probably gets wiped away.
Yeah, I think as well, like, seeing, like, you know, the folk that were annoyed about the that big tosser Ryan Stevenson. Like, remember when he came back the second time and folk were still annoyed about the whole wages thing and stuff like that, but then he put in a performance in League Cup final and, you know, nearly won us it. And, you know, it's people that are unwilling to kind of see that people are kind of improving, or that folk are trying hard. And I think it's like, he often comes across as pretty belligerent and clueless, I guess, in interviews at times, and a little bit stubborn. But I think, like, if you look at his record, I think I don't know, you probably got that, like, what, third best in?
I think it's something like it's something like he's in the top 5. I think he's 5th in the Premiership win percentage for us as managers.
Right.
I think
just as well you said Premiership, because if you were going to go total, then the argument arises, well, he's had 2 seasons in the Championship and whatever. Granted, we've won it both times and bounced back, you know.
And one of them was a record points total.
No, of course. But, you know, it's nitpicking. But you're right. Look, I just, there's still a part of me last season that just infuriates me. If we go on and do well in the Cups and continue to perform admirably in the league, that will gradually fade away. Don't worry.
It's just torture. I mean, looking back at, like, as a Hearts fan, it's just torture. Like, I mean, like I sort of said earlier about looking back at the cup final from last year, it's just that there's absolutely no good in it happening, and it's just like, even then, like say when Scotland played England again this year, it's like, looking back, it's like, oh, if only Armstrong had passed the right way and stuff like that. Like, and stuff like that is like, there's no logical reason to do it, but it's still,
you just can't help but thinking that way.
And I think that's the thing with it, like, with being, I guess it comes with being a Hearts fan, but it's hard. But I think you need to kind of shut that off and just give him credit. And I think it's, being honest, like, when they did leave, things went pretty badly last time. And I think, it's maybe the case where, like, McInnes at Aberdeen never quite got the fans on side, I feel, or at least they got a bit bored with him. But I think it's, grass isn't always greener, and we've seen that it isn't. So I kind of quite happy that he's here for the long run anyway.
Absolutely. And immediately, starting the second half, after Neilson by his own volition said things that he couldn't say to Hearts TV to the side at halftime, we almost immediately break the deadlock with our first shot on target. A fantastic move. John Suter picks the ball up from Taylor Moore on the halfway line and plays a ball inside through the middle of the park to Barry Mackay. Probably one of the few bright sparks of that first half, who, instead of taking a touch like most players would to steady himself, just first time plays it through the defence to the on-running Liam Boyce, who had been really frustrated in the first half. He'd cut a very frustrated figure as he was getting absolutely no service to him.
As he so often does.
Yeah, absolutely. But to prove how clinical and top a striker he is, he has that one chance and doesn't think about it, hits it. Strycek tries to get some form of contact on it, but can't. Wheels away, 11th goal of the season. Adam, the man that you asked Robbie Neilson if he would be persisting with, has again got us a goal. What did you make of the goal?
don't get twisted. I love Liam Boyce and was, of course, delighted to see him bag from open play. That was a big concern of mine, I've got to be honest, because I think his last open play goal for Hearts was in Paisley against St Mirren, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
So, and then I hear that it's his first goal in 6 games and whatever. So I think judging by the celebration as well, there's been a lot of frustration with Liam Boyce with injury and just something of a drought, which again, harping back to that interview with Robbie, that's when I asked him that question, given there was a drought back then as well. I don't think Barry Mackay receives enough credit for the goal, to be honest, because the ball from John Souttar is fizzed in at a lot of pace. There's plenty that would take, a horrendous first touch, but Barry Mackay just cushions it. I actually thought at first glance that it was a no-look pass, which then that would have just been, the icing on top of the cake. But it's a lovely weighted ball for Liam Boyce to slot home. And those two are just by far and away our best offensive players. So delighted to see them link up. No surprise to see them link up for what proved a great match-winning goal in the end.
Richard, how have you felt Barry Mackay has been in his time here? Because obviously some people criticise him for the fact that it actually took him until yesterday to properly get on the kind of goal contribution sheet, as his assist was fantastic. But the kind of criticism has been that he hasn't been contributing with physical goals. However, those people will also often say that he's been one of our few bright sparks out wide. How have you felt he's done since coming in?
I think he's one of the most consistent at keeping his place anyway. I think if you look at, how it's been sort of Ginnelly, Mackay-Stephen, Woodburn and stuff like that, they've all kind of, in and out of the side.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Mackay's a kind of like, if not one of the first names on the team sheet, obviously not with Gordon and Souttar and stuff, but he's definitely an important piece, and I think it's like he gives us something, but I think it's not always his own fault if it doesn't work out. So I think a lot of he'll put decent crosses in and it could come to nothing, but it's not a lack of intent, and I think it's I like him. I think he's good, and I think it was good when we got him, and I don't think he's disappointed, unlike a certain guy that's come from Liverpool. So yeah,
very, very fair. We actually very quickly after that almost make it 2-0. Liam Boyce plays a fantastic ball through to Aaron McInnes, who in the second half, because of the changes, it meant that Robbie only had one sub. So we changed back to the 4-2-3-1 when Haring came on. And it meant that now McInnes was almost playing right wing and Alex Cochrane was playing almost left wing, but obviously positions that they're not terribly suited to. However, McInnes in that second half actually seemed to be far better in that position. On this occasion, he gets it a bit wrong. He hits over the bar. He said actually today in the press that he felt he should have scored. Obviously, he had these kind of chances, you said, Richard, at Celtic Park, but obviously a very hard place to go and kind of go, right, here's your chance. It's away at one of the toughest grounds in Scotland. He didn't have a great first half, but no one else did, really. How have you felt McInnes has done this season when he's been called upon? And would you like to see more of him in the side, even when we've got everybody fit?
Yeah, I think it's been hard for him. Like him, I guess if you look at sort of fringe players like him and Walker, I think it's been hard for them to kind of keep the morale, and I think it could quite easily turn into a situation where they're just like toys out the pram. But I mean, I don't know the situation with Walker. Like obviously, is probably looking at a way out, I would imagine, in January, given the way it's been going. But like I feel with McInnes, I think when he was at the Dundee United game that he scored.
Yep.
I think that like instant kind of showed Nielsen that it was a bit of like that. He had a hunger there, and I think he's definitely one of those players that I think the fans want to see more of as well. But it's just trying to figure out at the start where to put him in. Like obviously you had the two centre midfielders doing a grand job when it was hard to sort of displace them. But I feel with Beningame having been out, this was like the ideal time to kind of bring him back in, and it's good that it's happened. And I think it's I think he deserves it. I think he's like, I mean, I don't even like. I mean, he's not the best player at the club, I wouldn't say, but he's definitely like, he's got hunger and desire, and I think he fits him well. So whatever he brings, I think he's doing a good job.
Adam, obviously, as Richard just said, Benny and Cammy were doing so well in the middle of the park that people like Haring, Walker, and McInerney, who are they're more central than anybody else. It is hard to break into that when not only are Benny and Cammy playing so well, but they've also immediately become fan favourites as well, which means that even if they're dropping off a bit like Benny, you have that goodwill with the fans because you've built that up. How do you think over the last couple of games McInerney has done? And do you think when Benny's fit that he'll be able to still feature in the side?
I think he's realised the opportunity that's presented itself to him. I don't think he's performed badly or anything like that. I actually think all he's missed has been an extra goal or two, really, particularly down at Livingston. I think when Benny's fully fit, he and Devlin start. It really is that simple. But in Beningham's absence, Aaron McInerney's got a great chance to try and break into this team. I'd like to see him start on Sunday, to be honest. I know that we're going to come to the Rangers game and you'll probably ask for selections and whatever, but it's a tough one. But I think I know what I would opt for against the reigning champions at Tynecastle this weekend. And he's part of my plans, put it that way.
Well, we will get to that as we just have a couple more things to speak about this game. Liam Boyce pulled up hurt and it kind of panicked everybody as it was a different injury by the looks of it. The previous injury that's kind of had him out for the last few weeks has been a calf injury. However, he was holding his hamstring this time. And Neil Simon asked...
Did the referee stop the game? Or was it...
No, actually, surprisingly he didn't, which I thought was a new rule.
And there was no drop ball either. I noticed that.
No, he just kind of carried on as if it's the normal thing that you do. He's not had the memo, clearly. But Nielsen said that Boyce was taken off as a precaution. He felt his hamstring get a bit tight, and it's the 80th minute. We're 1-0 up and pretty dominant by that point. He said himself he was thinking, I think we've got enough to get through this. So therefore, he took him off. Nandwillie came on, and what immediately followed was a Livingston chant that, listen, we've spoken about our offside situation. It's only fair that we do the same for Livingston. A through ball over the top was played through to Bruce Anderson. Suter does very, very well and hurts his leg, actually. He gets burned by the pitch to block it. However, the linesman flags it as offside, and David Martindale just loses his shit on the touchline. He has since, in the days followed, said that teams like Livingston don't get decisions. The same scrutiny doesn't get put on it. When we have an issue with linesmen, it's all over the papers for the weeks after. However, when it's a team like Livingston, it doesn't have the same effect. Richard, what did you make of it? I think it's pretty apparent Bruce Anderson was onside, but what do you make of Martindale's comments? Do you agree that Livingston do not get the same help that apparently we get?
I don't think I saw a decent enough angle from it, like with the... You didn't see the did we see the side on? I don't.
No, we didn't see the side on. No.
Yeah, so I think it's, it's also hard to feel sympathy when you've been on the receiving end. So it's a bit like, but like, I mean, I think it's more so about the position he's in. I think he's under pressure, so I think he's obviously like wound up about that sort of thing, and he's obviously got a bit of history with fine lines and stuff like that as well. So.
I was waiting on that. I could only have myself to blame for that. Adam, I've got a next question. Armand Nandwillie came on, as I said.
Honking. Absolutely honking. Let's just cut to the chase. This comes back to you. I told you, do not get gassed with Armand Nandwillie. He was banging them in the championship. Fair play, lack of action. Okay, cool. Statistics showed he was brilliant for us in the championship. I can accept that. I've given this guy chance after chance. Not for me.
Well,
not for me.
The chance that he had, he was playing...
How does he not score?
We'll discuss it.
Everybody's seen it. You don't need to talk about it. He rounds the keeper and he hits the side netting.
So initially, because I was watching live, I thought the way he went to the side, I was like, so Strychek's pushed that. He's taking it too close, and Strychek's pushed it away.
Oh, you think he's got like a touch on it, so
I was like, that's why it's went that far.
It's just
to the side.
It's the clunkiness, mate.
It's just a terrible.
Here's a hot take. You were talking about around the grounds. Tony Watt, League's top
If
scorer.
you're going to say, I want Tony Watt,
I
don't caveat with hot take that you want the league's top goal scorer.
No, well, because everybody... Look, I'll be the first to say that Hearts fans are sometimes too... what's the word I'm looking for? Attached. What's it?
Emotional?
No.
Invested?
No.
Summon.
Anyway, we're so quick to want former players to return, but here it's justified. I believe Tony Watt's out of contract to the end of the season. We need sufficient backup for Liam Boyce. Let's make it happen. Why not? The second chance. I'd like to see it. They're pally. They play PlayStation all the time together.
Great. Richard, I'm not going to ask you about Tony Watt because that wasn't the plan. I didn't expect us to go in that direction.
Do it, Hearts. Do it.
Shut up. Nandvali is who I want to ask you about, Richard, because obviously the miss was terrible, but again, we speak about him a lot.
It's one of the worst I've ever seen.
Shut up! What has your thoughts been on Nandvali as both a signing and his recent performances?
He's that bad that folk want Ewan Henderson back at the club.
That's it. I think that's a perfect way.
You can't argue with that.
That's an interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like we're seeing this, like where's he at? Alloa or something.
Yeah.
And there's like, oh, he's getting the goals
in League
and stuff.
One.
Yeah, but then I'm like, but then we're looking at who we've got on the bench, and we're like, to be honest, I mean, I was sort of. I probably would rather have Ewan Henderson, to be honest. Like I slag them off for it, but I mean, it's I can't think of a way. Even when I bring him on in FIFA, I feel a bit sick. Like it's just, fine with the guy, but I just whatever. But I think he's worse than Woodburn.
This is where. Leagues down south mislead you. How can Blackpool fans absolutely adore the guy? He's supposedly been on Sunderland's radar, and he's just...
Let's bring Cole Stockton back. Let's do that.
Yes, exactly. Aye, he's been class. He's scored 15 goals this season.
Oh, maybe these lower leagues aren't as good as people think, but that's
what
a discussion for another time.
What a novelty that is. Anyway,
he's been as bad as Kevin Nisbet this season.
That's a big statement. That's a very big statement.
At least Kevin Nisbet scored a worldie in that game alongside a certain Tony Watt.
Right.
I'm going to say.
We're not going to praise Hibs players here. This is not the show for it. Anyway, we did get the 3 points. It was all wrapped up. We're now 5 points clear in
Thank
third.
Christ. Well done. We've actually capitalised for once. Come on, Hearts. Get in there.
And finally, Rangers are coming to Tynecastle. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, his first time facing us as a manager. Obviously, they're doing well. However, they are, as we speak, 2 days away from travelling through to France and playing Lyon. So maybe that will affect team selection, tiredness, not sure. Richard, how are you feeling about this? How do you think it's going to go?
Well, they've got less fans going to Lyon than they've got going to Tynecastle, which is quite nice.
Yes,
so I feel like, I mean, what annoys me about Van Bronckhorst, I don't like that he shakes hands with his 8 backroom staff when they scored a goal. It's like, I don't know, that annoys me.
Team game.
That's all I've noticed. I mean, I've not really watched a lot of their highlights. I've just saw that, and that annoyed me. But it's hard to know. I feel like they're papering over the cracks, really. I don't know if that's, maybe that was from the Gerrard era. I don't think enough's changed since then, but I don't think anyone's really laid their glove on them, to be honest. So, and I think I always have high hopes when we get the Old Firm after they played in Europe. And from experience, they've absolutely demolished us. So it's it's not great, but I think there's nothing to fear from them. I think it's obviously at Tynecastle our form's different, but it's it's not the Parkhead that we had last week. So it's winnable, but
we'll see. It will be interesting. Adam, you obviously said you had ideas about a team. What would you make wholesale change to the team that played against Livingston, or maybe should I say the team that finished against Livingston?
Well, I'd have Big Pete in from the start.
Yep.
Definitely. I'd go Gordon in goal, back 3, Suter, Halkett, Kingsley. Goes without saying. Is Michael Smith going to be back?
He believes he will be. Yes.
Because if he's back,
So that means
then
no, probably.
So that means no. Taylor Moore
Yeah.
will need to
right,
play.
Taylor Moore, right wing back then. Cochrane, start left wing back for me.
Not Halliday.
No.
That's a shock. You love him.
Devlin.
He's your best mate.
Devlin and Haring in the middle. And then the front three, I'm going Aaron McInnes, Barry Mackay, and Liam Boyce with the view of Aaron McInnes potentially on the right, supporting Boyce up front and Mackay on the left, or McInnes sort of at the top of the triangle, if you like, in midfield, and Barry Mackay just off Liam Boyce. I think a little bit of flexibility in the final third. We can opt to kind of chop and change because Barry Mackay is the only wide player that's doing it for me at the minute. Liam Boyce is back in amongst the goals, and I don't think McInnes done poorly in the games that he's featured in. So that would be the reasoning behind my selection. Be interesting to see what the gaffer goes for on Sunday.
Richard, how do you feel about that? Do you agree? Would you make any changes to Adam's team?
I guess a question mark like McInnes. I'm like, I wonder, does he go for a Ginnelly or Mackay Stephen? I don't know. Does he try and kind of even it out? But I mean, good luck choosing from that lot.
There'll be some laugh. I'm going to trouble you all for score predictions. Richard, I'll come to you first.
1-0 maybe.
Oh, a nice point on a Sunday morning.
Well, I mean, probably a frustrating point, but I would imagine we'll go 1-0 up and then they'll get a penalty or they'll pull a hamstring and it'll go in the net or something like that. I don't know.
Adam, who are you? Well, what are you going with?
I thought you were going to say who am I fearing? Joe Rebo is the one that I'm fearing.
Yes.
I think we're going to get something. And Richard's gone one each, so I'm going to differ. I'm going to say that Hearts will win 2-1. There you go.
Interesting. Well, sadly, I'm going to be the pessimist here. And I'm
There's
also
a
going to
surprise.
go, I know, I'm also going to go 2-1, but to Rangers, because I can just see, to be honest, Richard, I agree. I think something stupid will happen with a hamstring, or just Giovanni Van Bronckhorst will run onto the pitch and they'll be given a penalty or something. It's going to be, I don't think it's going to be a great day, but I can't wait to go. It's going to be some laugh. The final thing I wanted to ask you, Richard, actually, is because obviously, as you've mentioned throughout this, you're not in Edinburgh. You're not even in Scotland. How have you found watching the games from London?
I think I wrote a piece about this for Maroon Tinted Specs, and it was like I actually enjoyed it, but I think like obviously last year and stuff, it was like there was very little because I just moved down to London kind of before everything happened, so like, there was very little kind of home comforts, I guess. So I think it was just nice that I could watch Hearts every week, and it was almost like a planning for the weekend, like trying to think of something different that outside the work. So I've got this kind of like obviously workspace, but then I like clearing it for the weekends and having a plan. So getting the beers and watching Hearts, and like I really enjoyed it, but I got people didn't feel the same, and I think because I've been season ticket at Hearts for a while, like I've had a few before I moved down and stuff, but like I was almost just accepting it. I was just like, I liked that football was happening, and yeah, it was good. I think it was just like I didn't really like paying for the away streams because of that whole like being like not wanting to give them any money and for someone filming it on an iPhone
by various different clubs that you're never going to use again.
Yeah, and like accidentally like nearly buying like a season ticket for Ayr United and stuff like that, and that was a bit frustrating. But at the same point, again, it was just being able to watch them, and yeah.
Definitely. Well, that article will be in the description because it's a really, really good read. And it is interesting because obviously we were up here and Adam was able to go to some of the games. Adam was at the Alloa Cup loss, which, to be honest, actually, you probably wish you were in Richard's situation.
Undoubtedly.
Anyway, massive, massive thank you for listening, but a massive thank you, Richard, for coming on. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been good. Thank you.
That's a great review. It's fine.
He'll be back.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. We're very sorry that we're making you force and miss I'm a Celebrity. We hope you can forgive us that we're 50 minutes past this. However, Yes, we have been Perth to Paisley. Thank you all for listening. You can get us on all the socials at Perth to Paisley. It's all along the bottom of the screen.
Actually, no, wait, I've got a bonus. Sorry, I've got something to add. I had a gig last night, and I got picked on by the MC guy.
I saw
he was asking me like lots of questions, and I'm like, it's a bit weird because I'm on stage in like 5 minutes, and he's like, "Oh, what's the best thing that you've bought on eBay?" Which is a bit of an odd question because I've only ever bought like Shark Tale on DVD and a David Ginola figure. And I said, like, yeah, but I bought a David Ginola figure because I didn't want to get into the fact that I bought a David Ginola figure because once Santa accidentally gave my sister a David Ginola figure for Christmas, and then my mum and dad had to explain it, like, oh, it was like a knackered elf had mucked it up by mistake. And so I bought this to replicate it for the Christmas book that I'd written, which didn't sell very well. And I was like, yeah, so I bought a David Ginola figure. And the guy was like absolutely stumped, just like, who's David Ginola? Like, what? And I'm like, about what? And he asked the crowd, he's like, you don't even know who he is. And he went, actually, oh yeah, I remember him. Like, are you a Spurs fan? And I was like, well, that's completely the wrong club that you should be focusing on when you say that name. And I was like, no, I like, surprised you don't know who he is. And then the crowd didn't seem to know. And I'm like, he's only gonna win I'm a Celebrity this year. So I mean, it was very odd that they picked on him, and I thought you'd appreciate that just with the whole like naming Spurs over Newcastle chat.
Yeah, that's insane. What? It's Ginola.
Yep.
Oh well, what a happy ending for me to end the show. I'll be honest, right? I was expecting this podcast to be filled with digs at me, just sly wee ways of making me annoyed. But you actually did it with Adam throughout most of it. And then you wait
sorry,
until
Adam,
the very
that was
end.
accidental. Just
right.
you're the closest to my line of vision. So
I'll remember that, mate. I founded this podcast. I hope you've enjoyed your only appearance on it.
Also, well done for picking the Dundee keeper that shipped 3 goals for the.
I don't pick the teams. How many times?
Yes, he does.
Played better than Craig Gordon apparently. So that's good.
Apparently so. But yeah,
I'll get on to my employer. I accept that.
It's Adam. He does it.
It's
just
not
doesn't
me.
want to say. Anyway, we have been Perth to Paisley. You can also email us, perthpaisley@gmail.com, if you want to chuck us over anything. If you have enjoyed this and you're listening to it, please leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice. Massively helps. Please use the algorithm, pushes us up. If you're watching this on YouTube, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment. It also helps algorithm and stuff like that. Richard, where can people get you on social media?
The Richard Cobb, or you can find me probably on one of them sports Bible pages the next time they nick one of my tweets.
Yes, exactly. That is probably the best way. Adam, where can they get you to give you abuse about your whole squad team selection?
I was going to say, you can see my selections at Adam T. Kendall on all the socials. And what about yourself, mate?
I'm at DMcIver22. We'll be back next week to review the Rangers game and preview. Who's it? Dundee away. Some laugh it's going to be. But yes, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Keep the faith, Mother Chai Tees!